Especially with the fog, it looks like the set of a Hollywood fantasy movie, something dramatic like the Sinkhole People. But this is just one of several monstrous sinkholes in the nation of Oman, a Middle Eastern country whose officials have put up fences in some cases to keep tourists from slipping down and over the edge. Protecting them is priority as the nation hopes to triple its number of visitors in the years ahead. And it's easy to see why they gather near these chasms. One of them is almost 700 feet deep and 500 feet wide. They're lush and beautiful to look at, and then there are the sounds. Commonplace noises like the chirps of birds echo off the rock. The sinkhole distorts the sound into something otherworldly. While local folklore suggests the holes were created when meteorites crashed into the ground, a geologist told the AFP news agency that they were formed over thousands of years after water dissolved the limestone of the landscape. Many of you know how I feel about Fridays, but Wednesdays are mid. I'm Azuz. Welcome to the world from A to Z, your nonpartisan source for news and global events. Next, we're explaining how an effort to redraw electoral lines in one U.S. state could have an impact on the federal government, though it might be offset by action in another state. Here's what's going on. The Republican Party currently controls the White House and both chambers of the U.S. Congress. Their majority in the House of Representatives is very thin. They hold 7 more seats than Democrats. And the midterm elections that will be held next year usually go against the party in power, meaning they could favor Democrats and give them a better chance of taking control of the House. The state of Texas, whose government is also controlled by Republicans, is in the process of redistricting, changing the boundaries of where Texans vote. These boundaries can impact whether a district selects a Republican or a Democrat to represent it in the U.S. Congress. And Texas's plan could help Republicans, potentially giving them 5 more seats in the House of Representatives. Is this legal? States usually redistrict every 10 years after the U.S. Census comes out. But the Constitution does give states the power to determine how they'll hold their elections. Is this controversial? Redistricting often is. Both main political parties want voting districts to give them an advantage in elections, so they're regularly accused of redrawing lines to help themselves. Republicans in Texas say their plan gives voting districts a better design. Democrats say it makes voting districts more unfair. In response, the state of California, whose government is controlled by Democrats, has also started its own process of redistricting. Its governor says the goal is to potentially give Democrats 5 more seats in the U.S. House to equal the possible Republican gains in Texas. Both plans are politically divisive, and it's not certain how or if they'll affect the 2026 midterm elections. Meantime, Hurricane Erin is rolling north through the Atlantic. It's hundreds of miles off the U.S. East Coast and not expected to make landfall. But the storm's still bringing large waves, rip currents, and the threat of coastal flooding to places like North Carolina's Outer Banks.
The impact of Hurricane Erin is already being felt on U.S. coastlines. Around 90 rip current rescues were conducted in North Carolina Monday. In New Jersey, weather conditions are worsening.
We have a rip current warning, we have rough surf warning, we have storm warning, and conditions are bad.
Although Erin isn't forecast to make landfall, the strength of the storm serves as a reminder to prepare.
We always say when we talk about hurricanes, for example, don't wait until the storm warnings have been issued. It's too late.
Part of being prepared is building a kit of emergency supplies.
The toolkit doesn't need to be complex, but it should have specific things in there.
That includes medicine, critical documents, tools, at least a 3-day supply of food, as well as a hygiene and sanitation kit, according to FEMA. Other ways to prepare your home before a storm include testing your shutters and securing your outdoor space.
The goal is to create a behavior to be prepared, not a reaction.
In Atlanta, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
World of Knowledge. Which of these events took place on August 20th, 1910? The Mexican Revolution, the sinking of Titanic, the Great Fire, the Wall Street crash. Also known as the Big Blow Up, the Great Fire of 1910 is widely considered the most destructive wildfire in U.S. history, but it's not the only event from this date.
Encyclopedia Britannica says the Iran-Iraq War was one of the most destructive of the late 1900s. It's not known exactly how many people were killed in the conflict that ended on August 20th, but estimates suggest there were hundreds of thousands of deaths. Iran and Iraq resumed diplomatic relations in 1990, 2 years after their war ended. The New York Times conducted an experiment on this date in 1911. It sent out a commercial telegram to see how long it would take the message to travel around the world. 16 operators across a slew of different countries relayed the telegram, which read, quote, "This message sent around the world." And the time it took to travel more than 28,600 miles was considerably fast back then. The message came back in 16 and a half minutes.
Where in the world? This is a nation of southern Africa located between the Atlantic Ocean and Botswana. It's a presidential republic whose capital is Windhoek. It's home to the oldest desert in the world, the Namib. This is Namibia, a country of just under 3 million people.
One of Namibia's biggest fashion designers stitching away, making traditional styles for an international stage. The creations of McBride Kavari have walked runways around the world, shedding light on the African nation's traditional fashion and the hard history of its Herero natives. Kavari, a Herero himself, includes what are called Ahurukovas in all of his collections, a style of dress that fuses cultures, colonial German and traditional Herero fashion. But Kavari is now creating a new kind of Herero fashion by fusing two eras with modern and traditional styles.
Fashion is not static. Fashion is something that, we play around with what we have, what we think, what we imagination.
The Herero people migrated to Namibia in the 1500s and largely wore hides. They were cattle farmers, which manifested in their fashion. In 1894, Germany colonized Namibia, and the modest fashion ideals of German Christians started influencing Herero fashion. The Ahurukova, with its Victorian-style long sleeves and skirt, plus traditional-style horned headgear, was born and quickly adopted by Herero women. But though they adopted German fashions, the Herero were not pleased with German colonial rule. The Herero rebelled in 1904, and 4 years of war ensued, leading to a genocide. Roughly 80% of the Herero population was killed. The Herero people have greatly recovered, but today they only make up about 6% of Namibia's population. Kavari hopes his fashion pieces, though not fully traditional, will draw more attention to the culture and history of his people.
Making our way through your requests at worldatozorg and at youtube.com/@theworldatozz. We've got Mr. Williams' class. Hoover High School in Hoover, Alabama is the home of the Bucks. Great to see y'all. We're jumping up to Tennessee next to elect the senators of Mrs. Taylor's class. Norris Middle School is in Norris. And we'll land in Indiana this Wednesday. Want to say hello to Miss Jensen's class at Muncie Central High School. The Bearcats are on the prowl in Muncie, Indiana. Best intro animation ever. Okay, the trouble with recording a fishing video in Alaska is that there's a good chance you ain't the only one fishing. And when it saw the mascot of the NHL's Seattle Kraken hanging out near its watering hole, a local bear decided to berate the video crew. That's berate them, not that the bear ate them. No humans or mascots were harmed in this incident. But Bowie, that's the name of the mascot, was probably ready to float on back to Washington. In fact, he wanted to get cracking. You can't Kodiak fast enough when you look through spectacles and see signs of polarized aggression that could put you at an unbear disadvantage. When it's not a koala, the scene could quickly turn grisly. I'm Carl Azuz for The World from A to Z. Thank you for putting up with the puns. You mean the world to me.